It wasn't a pleasant story.
Can our online people hear us? All good? Great.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
Meeting to order.
Yeah.
On that one guy. We can get a thumbs up, but we're
Yeah, I'll
There you
go.
okay. Thanks, everybody. Thank you all for joining the October 2nd meeting of the West Kootenay Transit Committee. I'd like to start with the territorial acknowledgement. We recognize and respect that we live and meet within the unceded territories of the Columbia Basin Indigenous Nations peoples. I need a motion to approve the agenda. To move. Director Popoff, second. Don't want my glasses. Do we have a second? Hello? Can I get a second? I can't read. Terry.
I'll second that, Terry.
Okay, thanks, Terry. All in favor? Okay, I think that carries. We're getting a lot of response from you guys. All right, so that carries. We are, I need now a motion to approve the minutes. So moved. Thank you, Director Popoff. And second?
Terry will second.
Thanks, Terry. And all in favor? It carries. Okay. Adam, we're going to start with you.
Excuse me. Sorry. Anthony needs to get on the road here.
Yeah.
Very shortly. Can we move Anthony's item to the top?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's a material change.
No.
Yeah,
as long as you're happy with that.
I'm totally
Nothing
good
like
with that.
throwing a spanner in the works.
No, you already talked
Yeah.
about it, so no, that's totally good. Anthony, we're gonna go right to you.
Yeah, beauty, thank you.
So folks, just before folks on the call, we're moving Anthony up to in front of Adam. Anthony's gonna go.
Sorry, Adam.
Go ahead.
I won't hold it against you, Anthony.
So I put an introduction to Keola staff required. I'd like to introduce Alice. She's the operations supervisor with Keolis out of Trail. Between her and Anna, they run everything operational, and they are my ladies that make everything great down there. So welcome to both of you. Safety things. I just want to have a real quick discussion about the 41 bins and the blueberry routes. I guess I'll open it with an open-ended question. Is there anything anyone specifically wants to know about the 41 bin situation in Trail? I can dig into it in a little bit more detail if there's specific questions, or I'll keep it very top line.
Maybe Terry or Maria. Yeah, you'd be good.
Yeah, Terry.
Oh, thank you. I was just about to hit the raise hand button. No, I don't need any discussions because the council members and CEO and mayor who were down at UBCM got the explanation. I still don't like how it happened, but it's done. And maybe next time, like you guys, so I'm not sure if it was you folks or not, there'll be better communication, which we would all appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah, totally fair point. Let's hope it doesn't happen again, and if it does, we'll do it differently. As for the blueberry situation, Danica, myself, Tom, Ministry of Transport are in discussion about that situation. We've got a few suggestions that we're going to dig into. Nothing really to share other than we are still trying to solution it from a safety perspective and a timing perspective. And when we do, we will roll that out with more communication. You can go to the next slide, please. No worries. This is a neat initiative, and you're going to be enjoying this one, I think. It's a new pilot project we've got going on in Victoria that began mid-August. A sorry bus full sign is not a pleasant thing to see, and we've rolled out the project in Victoria. It says standing room only. The reason is there were 80,000 pass-ups last year. Buses driving past because their bus was deemed to be full. So I'll talk about the stats and then I'll talk about the why. Fiscal year to date, There's been nearly a 50% reduction in Victoria, and in September alone, an 85% reduction. Very simply, it is no longer up to the bus operator to decide if that bus is full. The bus will stop at every stop, and it's up to the passenger to decide if they want to get in the bus. It's up to their level of comfort. It will reduce pass-ups, and I'm specifically thinking about university. 98 and the 99 have had a tremendous amount of problems with those. So this will do two things. It'll address the pass-up situation, but also take the onus away from the driver to make a controversial decision. Yeah.
Does that carry over to our box and interact?
You read the bottom. I knew that question was going to be asked. So it is for medium and heavy duty buses only.
There
The
we
same situation will apply for light duties for our box, which is the standing room policy is a little different on those. It's to do with timings between routes. It's to do with location. But yeah, so this will be for medium and heavy duty buses only. It will, yeah, like I said, it puts pressure on the driver to make a decision. He'll now be required to stop everywhere, and it puts the onus on the passenger to decide if they want to be on that bus or not. So it's a great initiative, and it is working.
One quick question, will we still receive sort of metrics around pass ups? Because that's an important number for us to,
Absolutely.
like, sort of unrealized demand for us,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. It helps determine whether, what expansion looks like.
Yeah.
What routes we want to target. So the pass up data will still be there. It'll go down because pass ups will go down. But the 98 and the 99 is a great example of how we address that problem by seeing that statistical data. But yes, they're all right.
The red line.
The red line is no longer the red line.
Well,
Yeah, again, this is early stages yet. It was a great environment to be able to share this here. Lots still to work out when it comes out to the region. So I just got these notes from my VP a couple of days ago, and he did it over a cup of coffee in about 1 minute. So this is what I can share. I'm sure there'll be different, different and more specific things when we roll it out regionally, and the red line will be one of them. But that line is there to give the driver the safety, security space.
So they can see around them in their space, so in that case, with the driver, right, that would come up.
Exactly. Yeah, good point. Any more questions about this one?
Maria, I have a question online.
Okay.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, the question is, that if this is gonna come to the West Kootenay area, standing room only, we have a bus originating in Nakasa, which is a long trip to Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
So what consideration is there for standing room only if it's in Nakasa?
Light duty. Yeah, it's a light duty bus only. So it'll be, the rules on a light duty are slightly different than a medium and heavy. Light duty bus requires passengers to be seated and seat belted. So it'll remain the same with that.
Thank you.
Mayor McFadden.
Great, thank you. Through the chair to staff. Question about safety around this. Like, is there still a passenger count that you would cut off? Like, or is it just if you can cram that many people behind the red line? Like, I'm just wondering, still a passenger count where they would be okay. We can't actually let any more on the bus.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's one of the things that we need to dig into more because right now we're only trialing in Victoria, which is very urban centric. And I know there was the incident on the 98 a number of years ago, the 98?
99.
99. Yeah. From what I understand, and this is early opinion only, it'll be up to the passenger to choose their level of comfort in a busy bus.
Self-regulation.
Correct.
I understand the point of taking it off the operator. It's just there's certain safety things that you will have to be aware of when you guys.
Absolutely. I think, sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, we can also help with that by doing more bus safety in our orientations and things. And especially if you have specific things that you're seeing, we can incorporate those into our messaging and our boards. Because the students who are coming from somewhere else are typically the ones that don't know the safety standards and the.
Yeah, out of my way.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess the follow-up would just be, I see risk as the providers, like on us, if we don't have at least a cutoff, like if something happens. So if we don't know that this is the amount of, I totally understand taking it off the operator, but if we're doing passenger counts of how many people are coming on and off the bus, which I know some of our buses have that probably better technology than others, I just see risk of not saying, okay, like our max capacity is this amount, no matter what. I just, anyways, just the thought on the risk that we take as the provider of the service if we don't have a safety number. Like, you know, every building has an occupancy number of this is how many people you're allowed to have in the space safely. I would assume we would have something similar for a bus, and it might be quite high. So pastor can decide if they want to squish on the bus, but I still would think it would be wise to have some kind of max capacity number.
Yeah,
Anyways,
totally. Yeah, and when we get to the stage of rolling it out, because it is going to become a provincial initiative, there'll be those factors as well. So for now, I thought Danica's recommendation a great opportunity to share what was going to happen, because it will affect yourself, the college, and those two main commuter routes. You can go next slide, please. There's a great slide, one of my favorite ones to share, and I can't even see it because it's too far away.
Look behind you.
But I'll go from memory. Very Chandler. So basically, this is a roll-up of all of the four systems in the West Kootenays. Kootenay Boundary Custom, Conventional, Kootenay Lake West or Kootenay West Paratransit, and Nelson Conventional. Excuse the eye chart, but the target for service delivery is 99.5%. Fiscal year to date, you'll see that at 99.94%. That is, Dan is right. That is one of the better stats that you'll see in the province, especially in a collection of systems. But especially from where we were a year to 2 years ago. So to be able to share this with yourselves that at the time might have been nervous or cautious of what we were attempting to do. This is a really great reflection of the decisions that were made. And a lot of thanks needs to be given to the City of Nelson for putting their hand up to take over Kootenay Lake West. But the numbers don't lie. And the next few slides will talk about how it's even got better and what the end result looks like. So yeah, everyone should be very proud of what these look like. It's a fantastic effort. As a result, customer service responses have gone down. And that's just a great reflection of the health of the system. Any questions about this one? Thanks. Yeah, next slide. Again, another eye chart. I'm getting good at these, aren't I? OTP, on-time performance. This is another one that is probably the second most important stat that I look at and our operations team looks at. It's how on time are buses. As I said, target's not 75%, and that is averaging 76.3%. That is collection of the West Kootenay systems again. But the most impressive thing is the trajectory of that line in the bar graph, line graph itself. It's just continuing to climb. It's all to do with the operational effectiveness that Anna and Alice and Baron and his team have. Just having the drivers understand the importance of doing what you're supposed to do. This is a fantastic statistic, and it's a very difficult one to achieve. So again, this is a great reflection of the health of the region itself. You can go next slide. Oh, let me see what I've got on mine.
That's not true.
Oh, here it is. This is the one Jody wanted me to put in. And he's not here to see it either. Salvageable, do you think, or not?
Yeah, I'm just gonna try to reshare.
Okay, thanks.
See it?
There's no need to read everything, just look at the color, and green is great. It has been a long time since there have been greens. This is a fleet inspection report done, last month, August. What a fleet inspection report is we have our fleet inspectors that come in and look at the health of the buses that are on the road. So it's safety related, it is to do with all of the programs, and initiatives that we have going out, because those buses need to be safe on the road with people on them, and it has been a long time since it's been green. So this is the City of Nelson and Kootenay Lake West combined. Jody gets so angry when they're not green. They collectively work really hard to.
Should almost throw a few reds in there just for that reason.
That would be fun. It fires him up and winds him up so bad, and he complains and calls me. So the irony, he's not here to see these, but he has seen them before.
He's very happy.
He's pretty happy, yeah. But again, just a visual about the way things are going. Here, and as you know, people that are invested time, yourselves, elected officials and transportation experts, it's great to see how well we're doing. Next slide, please.
I just want to take a moment to point out too, that the one yellow issue on the maintenance program is actually where to put the broom on the bus.
Mr. Walker.
So, yeah, I mean, if that's our biggest problem is where do we keep the broom on the bus, I think we're doing exceptionally well here.
But you do have to question why someone didn't put it in place to get the green.
Yeah.
This is another inspection that I do. It's called a site inspection. It is to do with the overall health of a system. We dig into everything. It's a lot to do with liability. We look at training records, vulnerable sector searches, anything and everything that we can measure in a system. I do it once a year, and it has been less than green prior to things changing in the last few years. So with Kootenay Lake West and City of Nelson, again, fantastic effort to be delivering such great service. I don't know if everyone's aware, but there was a tragic incident yesterday in Kamloops when an operator crashed his bus into a oil tanker and he died. And as part of the reason I need to leave this quickly from here, but what happens after that situation is these files and records are dived very deeply into by RCMP, our investigative team. So this is one of the most important things we can do in my role, but also with the system itself. It's to make sure that everything's above board, liability is taken care of in terms of drivers and operators operating the best they can. So the fleet inspection and these inspections are vitally important, especially after an incident like yesterday. So green is important, and there's a lot of follow-up if it's not a green, and a lot of remedial work that needs to be done. So again, a reflection of how things are going. Yeah, around the list. Next, please. And this was in the southern part of the region. Again, a green inspection for Kootenay boundary. That is both systems, their conventional and custom system, and that is a green facility inspection. We inspect everything apparently. That is an inspection on the building itself. The safety of the building, the operational effectiveness of the building. So nothing but greens today, and I'm really happy to show you all the colors. So next, please. Kathy gave me these stats. So I see her on the screen there. Tom will appreciate this one. An 11% increase from May 24 to May 25 in Kootenay West ridership. Kathy, thank you for manually collecting these and giving them to me. A reflection of this is a question Tom asked Baron a couple of weeks ago, which is, if there's too much money in this bag, is it for someone else? So that's a great problem as elected officials to be collecting more money than you thought you should be collecting. No, it was all your money, Tom.
Great.
You can keep it all. But again, I mean, things are great. Ridership increases, ridership confidence increases. People believe in the system and the timeliness of the system, and they choose to ride buses. And
I couldn't find that article. Remember, I was gonna look for that article for you. I think you were in the article. You were talking about like 58% service in the past time. There's a bunch of statistics.
awesome. Do you want to share that, Tom?
Do you remember? It was a Valley Voice. It was an interview. It was in a paper. I looked for it. I had it. I'm gonna try and
A while
find
back.
it again.
Just a while back.
A while back, like
Yeah.
before we took over,
Yeah.
like 4 years ago or something.
Yeah.
The state of, and you and I had talked about it, and I was,
Yeah.
I'll look it up. I'll find it.
So, it's great to be sitting in here over the number of years when things weren't going great. But no one knew they weren't going great, because that's our job to right the ship and get everything back on task. So it's really neat to sit here today and share these stats and these numbers, but also the confidence from the tax-paying public in something as big as public transit. So, I take a lot of pride in what I do, and I thank you all for believing in us and that we could turn this around. So that's all I have to share today, unless there's other questions from anyone else that I can help answer.
Any questions for Anthony? Okay. Looks like you're free to go.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm leaving early to go and deal with the camera situation.
Drive safe.
Thank you very much for having me.
Drive safe, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Right on.
Adam, you're up.
Fantastic. Thank you. That will be a tough act to follow, as Anthony always is, but I will do my best. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen just so I can control my presentation. So Carly, if that's okay, then I can take you off the hook. Perfect. Okay. If I can just get a couple of head nods or thumbs up that people can see my screen, that'd be awesome. Perfect. All right. So first off, thank you for having me here today, everyone. I really appreciate it. I know that there are some of you who know me and know me well, and there are others that this is likely the first time we're connecting. So I appreciate the time today. My name is Adam Bishop. I'm the manager of accessible transit with BC Transit. I work closely with the regional operations teams, so the Anthony's of the world and others. And then I'm also embedded directly with our integrated service planning team within BC Transit. And my role really is focused on the modernization and the future service planning of our custom transit service, or what we all know as HandyDART. It is a relatively new position. I've been with Transit for 5 years in a couple of different leadership roles, and took this position on about a year and a half ago, which is really exciting. And I'm excited to share a little bit more with you about the custom transit solution, which will form the foundation for the modernization of custom transit or HandyDART service moving forward. Just a little bit about me and myself. Tom, you'll have heard this before. A couple of you will have heard it, so please just bear with me. So while I've been with Transit for 5 years, this role in particular has a bit of a personal bend or touch to it. As I am somebody that uses a manual wheelchair to get around. I have cerebral palsy. I've had it since birth, and it impacts my balance and fine motor skills. So this work is the culmination or the combination of both the personal and the professional for me. I have used HandyDart services throughout the country in the past, including in BC Transit and TransLink properties. And the reality is, as many of or all of you know, this service is a lifeline to those who need it. And so while I am lucky that I have my independence, there will come a time where I will likely rely on services like this. And so it is a bit of a personal and professional mission to modernize the service to make it be everything that it can be. And this project that you'll hear me talk about, the custom transit solution, is key to really setting that foundation. So thank you for taking the time today to learn a little bit more about it as we move forward. So what I'd like to talk to you about today, you'll see laid out in this table of contents. So you've heard this word from me, this phrase, the custom transit solution, but you don't really have any context. So I want to talk to you about why it matters, the key aspects of the solution, the impact that we expect it to have. One particular case study of a similar solution that has been implemented in a similar transit system. And just to note there that that's one of many. It was just one that I decided to draw on. And then the specific project status of where we are right now. And this will be a little bit of an update from Tom, because Tom would have heard this at the last, or heard about this at the last two BC Transit workshops. So he'll get a snapshot of kind of where we were then and where we are now. So really, why does this solution matter? Without telling you exactly what it's going to do yet, that'll be in the next slide. Why this solution matters, really, at the end of the day, it's about efficiency, both financial and operational. It is a service upgrade for our customers, and it represents an opportunity to majorly increase the reputational and the strategic value of custom transit services. Across the province, custom transit delivers incredible services, in particular when you consider the tools that our operating partners, and some of you who are sitting in the room right now know this intimately, considering the tools that are at your fingertips and the lack of tools and technologies that are at your fingertips. It constantly amazes me the level of service that you're able to provide. And my role here is really to supercharge, for lack of a better term, the tools that you have at your fingertips in order to continue to deliver exceptional service in the custom world. So the custom transit solution is really an enterprise piece of software that will encompass the A to Z journey of an individual who chooses to ride HandyDart. So both from the customer perspective and then from the operational perspective. It will include things like the option to apply for HandyDart service and register electronically, digitally. So right now, all of the HandyDart applications that are in place or that are received by paper, and then they need to be managed by the operating partner. Those records need to be stored. The information needs to be retained and ingested into their processes. While the ability to apply for service via paper will not go away, all that information will be able to be ingested into this tool. So that's the beginning of the process that will then flow into a customer profile, which will then flow into the dispatch tool, and it will allow customers, their families, and their care teams to have self-service options, to be able to book trips online, manage their trips online, still call in and talk to an individual if they want to book in person, whether they want to also engage through what's commonly referred to as an IVR, as another self-service option. So really, it will eliminate a bottleneck, and it will give people the choice as to how they want to interact with the service. On the dispatch side, it will allow our operating partners, as I move to the next slide, to have real-time route information. It will allow them to optimize their fleet based on demand. They will no longer have to do static planning of what those trips are going to look like throughout the day. They'll be able to optimize as demand comes in. From a customer perspective, they'll also be able to receive notifications as to when their bus is being dispatched, what their ETAs are, what their trip length looks like. So it's really about putting information back in the hands of our riders. As I dive into some of the key aspects of the service or of the solution, one of the things that I just want to address, and I do anytime we have these types of conversations, is why are we investing in a technology solution for a population where there is a stereotype that or a misconception that these individuals don't want to engage or don't know how to engage with technology? And what I would say to that is, yes, stereotypes exist for a reason, but when you start to look at the demographics of your communities and of the province as a whole, we're building this tool and this foundation for not only the Handy Dart riders of today, but the Handy Dart riders of tomorrow. And if you look at the demographics of the province, 1 in 4 persons is by 2031 is going to be over the age of 65. When you look at those numbers, people between the ages of 15 and 64 have or represent having a disability of about 20.5%. That number jumps to over 40% for individuals over 65. So when you think of that cohort of people, those are your next potential Handy Dart users. And those individuals have either grown up with technology or learned how to integrate technology into their day-to-day lives. And so technology becomes the expectation, not the exception, in everything they touch. And also when you consider the world of disability, technology can often be the great equalizer. It can be what levels the playing field. And so this is all about creating efficiencies on both the operations side, but also making it easier for riders and their care teams to get people to access the service. So some key aspects of the solution when you think of this being an enterprise front to back tool. And the first one, Tom, I bolded this one and I made it big for you because I know it'll put a smile on your face, just like it does mine every time I see it, is we will have defined service areas for custom transit. And right now in current state, service areas in some communities are a challenge. Where do we serve? Where are the boundaries? Is an individual within the service area? Those sorts of things. This tool will define the service area for each transit system, each custom transit system. So there's no more guesswork. There's service efficiency created through real-time routing and optimization. And there's service equity in the sense that when a rider goes to request a ride, they'll know exactly where the service will and will not take them. You'll see the self-service options that I've included there. So things like reduced wait time and enhanced customer experience through things like notifications around trip adjustments, ETAs, and eligibility. Digital applications. Again, this is something that is going to take some time to change behavior, but is a game changer in the sense that there'll be reduced processing time, there'll be accurate information on each and every client, and it really will form the foundation of the service moving forward. This tool will give us accurate representations in real time of how many people are utilizing the service, what their travel patterns are like, what their mobility needs may or may not be, those sorts of things. And all of that will lead to increased efficiency for day-to-day operations, trip optimization, and will result in a large reputational increase as it becomes easier to access the service and as the service becomes more efficient. And in particular, in your regions where you have quite expansive service areas, um, based on the work we've done and how we've seen this rolled out in other transit agencies that have similar geographical spreads, I can't tell you how impressed I've been with the operational efficiencies that these tools have allowed the agencies to gain. The other big one for me, and this is really where I will live and breathe, and I'll work with you as local government partners, is really around utilizing the information from this tool to have some really robust service planning, scenario planning, and demand forecasting. So you'll start to see information from this tool make it into transit future action plans and service plans, and other materials that will provide to you so that you can make data informed decisions from the insights on this tool around how you want to expand the service, how you want it to be optimized. Um, I wish I could tell you the vendor that we're targeting, but we'll get to that in a moment. But this is one of the things that really got me excited because we'll be able to do scenario planning where Tom can call me and say, "Hey, we'd really like to put an expansion request in for X number of hours and X number of buses. Can you tell me what that would potentially do to the system?" And my team will literally be able to create those service specs, drop them into the tool, and run historical service or run enhanced service and be able to provide you with some forecasts going, you know what, you may think you need X number of hours, but based on, peak times and things like that, we actually think it needs to be Y. So we'll be able to get a lot more targeted. And that's really exciting when we think about um, the state of custom transit service across the province. So all of that sounds amazing, but so what? What does that mean? Um, and I smiled when I saw Anthony's slides around the conventional service, because without the two of us knowing, you're going to see a lot of the same metrics here, and you're going to see increases. And this is only a snapshot of a couple. So you're going to see increased on-time performance, so more on-time trips, which is going to lead to enhanced reputation, and it's also going to unlock fleet capacity. And why is that OTP piece important? Well, the reality is, in the majority of custom transit services, we can't and don't actually track on-time performance. So we have an anecdotal understanding of our people getting rides or getting to the places they want to go when they request them. But we actually don't have insight into this. And this is one of the other things that this tool is going to allow us all to do, is to get better insight into the service itself. And I think when we talk about optimization and efficiency, another real world example of what that looks like is, somebody requests to go to the doctor at 10 o'clock. But because that's right in the middle of peak time in their system, in order to get to the doctor by 10, they need to be picked up by 8. So they spend 2 hours on a bus. It's those types of efficiency gains where we're going to likely see those windows shortened, and those trips potentially become more efficient, as one example. Through that efficiency, we'll see reduced unmet trips. And so what does that mean? That's really the more rides with less vehicles. So there'll be less people being passed up. Through the enhanced notifications and self-service tools, we know that we're going to see reduced no-shows, because for riders, there's simpler booking and real-time communication. And for transit systems, efficient use of resources, less wasted time, and increased trips per hour. One of the really interesting things that we saw in the modeling and the case studies that we did is, while we reduced no-shows, or no-shows were drastically reduced across the number of agencies that implemented tools like this. Late cancellations were also drastically reduced, just because of the different communication channels available. But cancellations themselves, so outside of that late cancellation window, went up. And at first, that was a really interesting thing for people to try and digest until they started to walk through. Well, of course, our cancellations are going up because it's easier for people to get a hold of us. But the beautiful thing about that is because they were canceling, say, 4 hours in advance or a day in advance or things like that, it would allow the operations team through this tool to continually optimize their trips to ensure that there were no wasted resources and people were able to fill those rides. And then again, the last one that I talked about is that service planning. So the ability to scale the system to demand, and really, it's one of the few times that I'm comfortable with this phrase, which is do more with less, because we'll be able to, as a broader team, continually optimize resources and take a really good look at what the system needs and when the system needs those resources. So here's the one case study with the lead proponent that we're looking at. This transit agency moved to the lead proponent in 2023, and you can see a number of the different stats there. So they saw total trips increase. They saw scheduling improvements through lead time. They saw their call center wait times cut in half. I had a conversation with this transit agency last week, and that call center wait time has reduced to about 2 minutes now. You can see the optimization. This system had a heavy reliance on non-dedicated fleet or taxis, and really what it allowed them to do through the optimization is have a strategic conversation around what they want non-dedicated fleet to be used for, if at all, moving forward. You can see the no-shows dropped. There's that piece around the cancellations in advance doubling. Again, that was one of the things that jumped out at me the first time I looked at it, and so then we really dove into the logic of that and what it actually meant. And with the cancellations in advance doubling, it allowed them to eliminate, essentially eliminate their unmet trips, which is, to me, was crazy. And then the lessons learned for us. So there was the major boost in OTP. So their OTP went from about the low 70s to the mid 90s within the first year. You see the denials and the unmet trips, no shows, and then the big piece, and this is one of the things that I can't stress enough when we're talking about cost and implementation of a tool, was the public perception increase that this service saw. And to a system, and I talked to about 15 different transit systems as we zeroed in on this potential lead proponent. They all spoke obviously about the cost savings and the efficiency gains and the things they saw, but the biggest piece that each one of them kept coming back to was the reputational increase their organization saw. And I can say this as a transit employee and also as somebody who has a disability and who's lived this life for a very long time. The disabled community may be somewhat small in the grand scheme of things, but there's some of, and many of you can attest to this. Tom, I'm looking at you based on some of the conversations we've had. The community tends to be one of the loudest groups of constituents you have, because they have had to scrape and claw and fight tooth and nail for everything they have. And when they see or when they perceive a public institution either letting them down or not performing to expectations that they have, there often is no middle ground. It's 0 to 100 in about 2 seconds. And oftentimes those concerns can be assuaged with conversation, but tools like this rolled out effectively and communicated well really play a huge role in building that positive public perception and really enhancing that trust. And it is a very tangible way for this community to look at the transit service that they're being provided and going, we understand that it's being provided in a different way because it has to be. It's not like conventional service or blended service, but it is being invested in and it is being provided in the most effective, efficient way possible. So finally, in this last slide is really the most important one to me, is really talking about the value to BC Transit and our partners, which are all of you in this room and then some. So for drivers and our operators, we'll get really granular. It introduces onboard technology through in-vehicle tablets with live manifests and routing. So live mapping, integrated traffic alerts, and those sorts of things. Instant alerts for cancellations or new pickups. So it really further enhances the relationship between dispatch and the drivers themselves, reduce stress with fewer scheduling errors, and improve safety and on-time performance. The safety piece is really having that data around the clients or the riders at their fingertips, so those rides can be optimized. They can be put with the right people at the right time. And then there was that OTP piece that we talked about. For BC Transit operations, so the Anthony Mirandas of the world and others, centralized dashboards, providing leadership with standardized KPIs across all 28 of our custom transit systems, which will allow for that evidence-based decision-making and transparent reporting. Some of you may know, others may not. All of the data that we receive for custom transit service is manually entered and provided to us by our operating partners. It is a massive administrative burden, and there is always the risk, despite everybody's best efforts, around human error, misinterpretation of definitions, so on and so forth. And so this removes that and allows the operations staff to really be the oversight and just monitoring the system and ensuring that it is performing the way it should. That third bullet, again, is that evidence-based planning and service adjustments. And for our local government partners in the room and our operations staff, there will be standardized and transparent reporting. So everybody will be singing from the same hymn book and be looking at the same data the same way. And this big last one, that's why I made it the largest on the screen. So for local governments in particular, and policymakers and strategists, so that's the me's of the world. So there's that standardized reporting. There's that equity-based planning. So and again, I can't speak to this enough. All of this information that we're going to have in the tool will not only allow us to do wonderful, amazing things around service planning that we haven't been able to do in custom transit in the past, but it'll also give us a tool to be able to interact with the riders of custom transit, to solicit feedback, to get insights and do engagements through future action plans and things like that. And then there's also just the transparent investment outcomes. So we will all be able to look at this system, see how it's performing, identify hotspots. So from an operations perspective, and the day-to-day challenges, you'll be able to look and see performance and see where you're having challenges with certain riders, certain passenger mixes, all those sorts of things. And then from a local government perspective, we'll be able to look at the system at a macro level with you, and I'll be able to make some or derive some really strong strategic insights to allow us to make some more targeted decisions, which anytime I see Tom, that's one of the things Tom and I spend a lot of time talking about, just about, where and how is the right investment in custom transit, and this will really provide us the foundation to make those decisions moving forward. So I hope all of that really excites you. I wish I had hoped that I would be at a point as I gave these presentations, in the beginning of October, that I'd be able to say, this is the vendor that we're working with, and here, let me actually show you how the tool will work tailored to your region. But one of the things that I've learned in leading projects like this in the past is that you want to be as diligent as you can in the contract negotiations that you're having, and making sure you're covering absolutely everything possible, making sure you're getting the best value for money. And so we are looking to finalize our contract with our lead proponent this month and sign on the dotted line. As soon as we sign, I'm pretty sure as soon as the ink dries, there is a communications plan for me to go loud with both our local governments and our riders, because particularly in some of our larger systems, if you've paid it or seen it in the news, Victoria in particular, Kamloops, Kelowna, there's often a lot of noise around custom transit, and so we want to be able to go loud and explain to everyone how this tool is going to help us improve the services in both those systems, but in also systems such as yourselves that face some really unique challenges. And so we are targeting a phased rollout beginning in the 2026 calendar year. So what do I mean by that? If we sign a contract in October, we think, or we will start the actual project and development and implementation phase in November, and then begin rollout into our first pilot system in early 2026. And then we are anticipating 12 to 18 months of a phased rollout plan for full implementation across the province. That's a pretty wide gap. And the reason I have it as 12 to 18 is because there is anytime you're working with a vendor, there is their belief that, oh yeah, we can do this in a very, a condensed timeline. And then there's the realities that we know we will face. The one thing that I will say, and one of the things that really sets this vendor apart as I stop sharing my screen, is their approach to training and onboarding, and how they white glove the transit agencies and their operating partners that they work with. It is one of the things over and above the technology that they utilize in order to do a lot of what I'm talking about. It is one of the things that sets them apart, is just in terms how they essentially become an extended part of the overall team and give operations staff all the tools and training they need to be successful to use this technology to its fullest. And so I hope this, as you start to talk about budgets and you start to look at all that and you hear about the custom transit solution, I hope this gives you a window into what we're looking to do. That was why Danica asked me to come and present today. And I look forward to coming back to this group and sharing more targeted information about your specific transit systems and the how and the what. I know I talked to Kathy and Alice and team quite a bit, and I think there's a mix of anticipation, but also, like any change management is a thing, and there are challenges and concerns, and we look forward to working through those with you as we bring this unified technology across the province. So with that, I'll end. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them now. Otherwise, I will let you move on with your agenda.
Questions for Adam?
So I do have a question, if I may, Chair.
Yeah.
It's what do you actually mean by equity? Like I'm looking at the West Kootenay region.
Mm-hmm.
how would that affect the West Kootenay region with equity?
So I have an interesting take on equity, because I don't think equity in this case means apples to apples. So if conventional service runs from X to X, that the Handy Dart service needs to run mirror that. I look at equity as ease of access and being the service being available when it is required by those that use it. And so when I say this tool will increase equity across the service, what I'm saying is that it will increase the availability of the service as a whole. We know that, but it will also give us, and by us, I mean the royal us, the ability to truly understand and see when and where the service is required and be able to build our custom transit systems around that. And so a very easy and general example is if there is a conventional service that runs from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m., I don't necessarily think Handy Dart service needs to run from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. It may be that the demand for that service is really focused from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so this tool is really going to be able to allow us to tailor to those demands and then be able to strategize around how to address potential late demand and go, okay, we know the service runs till 5, but we suspect that if we extended the service till 7, there would be increased demand and that would be really well utilized. So let's decide how we want to do that, run pilots, run scenarios, and then go from there. Does that answer your question?
It does in sort, but I do have a question to the chair, to Tom. Will this solve some of the issues that we have in Area H with the times that we have buses running?
Respectfully to the chair, yes, this is a tool that will assist with that. Particularly, we have a challenge in Cristobal right now. There are 11 people there that could really use Handy Dart services and have been receiving a version of that service on a specific day a week, which is, again, because technically it's not Handy Dart, it's paratransit. We're probably moving away from these paratransit models to get into real Handy Dart services. And, you know, the conversations I've had with those people, this would just allow them to actually get to the bus. So it may be just a matter of running a bus, as Adam pointed out, like on a schedule, using AI, like using these powerful tools to just get people to conventional transit services. I know there's one gentleman who's blind. And if he can get to a bus, he's set. He doesn't mind using conventional transit, but it's getting from Cristobal to the junction, right? That's where his challenges are. You know, there's a couple of people with mobility issues. It's the same thing. You know, they're like, I'm happy to use the 9998 or I'm happy to use the 20, but I can't get to it. So, you know, again, creating that equity in the community, opportunity through mobility is really like the thing that we're trying to provide to everybody here. Similarly, areas E and F have very similar challenges. We're getting a lot of pressure in Balfour with the community there around Handy Dart services, proper custom transit services. You know, I hear the same thing again too. I can't get to the 10. If I could get to the 10, you know, we have similar things going on in Harry Proctor as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, particularly with really powerful tools that Adam's talking about, right? Like this will not operate the way it has operated 2 years ago. This will likely operate in a brand new fashion that will inform how other transit solutions form in the future. Particularly, I'm thinking about some of those solutions that we've seen implemented in Kelowna, that Cascar is really interested in. I think there's a direct dovetail with this experience that he's talking about. Once we have some time with it, it's going to really be transformative. The custom transit system will reinform how conventional transit actually works at the end of the day.
Well, thank you. That answers the question. It's not only a benefit to Area H, it's a benefit to the whole West Kootenay area and our transit system, the equity portion.
Absolutely. And rural transit is, again, we've had these conversations in other committees, right? Like again, equity through freedom of movement in a rural area. Being able to access services is critical to the existence of rural areas, right? As we see the ongoing centralization of services on the part of provincial government, we're stepping into these spaces in partnership with BC Transit, in partnership with Ministry of Transportation and Transit, that's what they're called now, to help get people to those services, and in particular the populations that Adam's talking.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Adam? No, not seeing any. Okay, Adam, I've got a few.
Sure, fire away.
Building on what Tom said, am I reading between the lines that if this technology, this system is so effective, would it extend beyond the handy dart, traditional handy dart?
So if we're talking to other transit or service types like on demand and things like that, the way I would answer that is on demand is about the on demand service type and tooling is about 1/7 of what the custom transit tool will do. So there is overlap in the dispatching component, but that's where it ends. And so what I would say is right now the tool sets are distinct, but that is something that we are monitoring and keeping an eye on because we do think from a technology perspective there is a potential convergence down the road. But we wanted to be very cognizant of ensuring both service types, on demand and custom, were invested in the right way, and particularly in custom sense, because from what Tom was saying, like this will be a fundamental shift in how custom transit operates. So we wanted to almost insulate this project to ensure that it was delivered the right way with the right requirements. And then once we are comfortable, everybody is comfortable with that tool, then yes, I think there is an opportunity for us to look at the convergence of the technology in particular. Where it goes from beyond that, I think is too early to say.
Okay, thanks. So second question then, did I get these numbers right? Like maybe you want to explain them more. You're saying that we've 14,000 in that case study, 14,000 no-shows down to 12 is an improvement. And then 300,000 trips overall for 500 plus riders. So that the way that works out on a per rider basis is 600 trips per rider and 24 no-shows per rider. Are those numbers correct?
So the numbers are correct when you look at the total number of trips. So there were over 500 customers and their fleet size was 70. So it's this one was a substantial fleet size. And I think, so when I look at those numbers, what I see is more availability of service, more one-off trips. So more, I'm going to go to the grocery store, I'm going to go to the doctors, I'm going to go to the barbers. So while those anchor trips where there's defined times where somebody needs to be at the doctor by 9 o'clock, those still exist. But as I looked at this, there were a lot more spontaneous trips to go. I want to go to a social outing or those sorts of things. To address the no-shows piece, again, I think for when I looked at this, again, that was around your no-shows dropped, but some of those no-shows moved into the cancellations into advanced category. And so that's where you saw those numbers jump. And that's what we want, because what that's allowing the Cathys of the world, the Alices of the world, and the technology to do is continually optimize the trips and offer trips to those people who may not have been able to receive them if there was a no-show at the door or those sorts of things.
Okay, so again, to be clear, 600 trips per rider per year. So that's like 2 a day, or a little less than 2
potentially
trips per day per rider on average.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a full use and service. Great, thanks, Adam. Any other questions for Adam? No, seeing none. Okay, thanks, Adam.
Thank you for your time, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you. Danica, you are up next.
Hello, I am going to figure out how to share my screen. Oh, there we go.
You want me to share it or?
No, I can share it. All right. Can everyone see? Okay, let me just put everything back. Okay. All right, you can see me, hear me, and see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, first, Anthony did mention this, but I would like to share a message from BC Transit about the incident that occurred yesterday. So we're very saddened to share that we lost a member of our transit community. Yesterday morning, a BC Transit bus was involved in a collision with a commercial vehicle on Ord Road in Kamloops. The bus was not in service at the time and there was no passengers on board. Sadly, the transit operator succumbed to their injuries on site. BC Transit is supporting the Kamloops RCMP with their investigation, and we are working with Transdev Canada in undertaking an investigation of our own as well. As safety is BC Transit's top priority, we have staff on the ground in Kamloops and on their way to Kamloops, working to support our investigation alongside Transdev Canada, who operate the system, as well as that of the local RCMP. And we all are part of the BC Transit team serving communities across British Columbia and are affected by this tragic event. So we're hold all those involved in our thoughts, and we'll be lowering our flags to half-mast at the Victoria Transit Centre and the View Royal Handy Dart Centre until further notice. And this is a very rare event. We haven't had a fatality like this of an operator in 25 years at BC Transit, which is the longest anyone can remember. And unfortunately, the only other fatality in corporate memory is the one that happened locally a few years ago of a passenger. So it is a very rare incident, and it certainly affects a lot of people. With that, I will sort of get into our regularly scheduled agenda. So I have some very quick updates about a whole bunch of things to run through today. The first thing that I'll mention is just the Health Connections funding update. So at the last meeting in May, the committee requested that BC Transit negotiate on their behalf of the region to address the gap between operating cost and funding levels. So this is just an update of that. So as a bit of a reminder, the Interior Health Authority funding agreement for Health Connections trips dates back to 2013. And these Health Connections trips are intended to support interregional transit access to health services. So BC Transit has been working with Interior Health Authority to review funding levels for the Regional District of Central Kootenay. And we have confirmed that the 3-year transit budget now forecasts lifts to IHA funding levels. And by 2028-29, the IHA funding will fully cover operational costs for the 1,947 annual service hours, which is the number of service hours that are currently being allocated to the Health Connection trips between Kaslo and Nelson, Nakusp and Nelson, and Salmo and Nelson. Are there any questions or comments about this before I continue? Okay.
Just, I do have a question, if I may, through the chair.
Sure.
You've shown the 2025, 2026. What was the 2024 funding?
So 25, 26, that is, I'd say, unchanged. So you start to see the funding lifts next year. So typically there's a funding lift of about, 1 or 2% just to sort of keep up with inflationary costs. That's forecasted every year. So I'd say 2025, 26 year, the 202,000, that's been the, I'd say, existing funding level that definitely includes the gap in funding. And then you'll see we were able to negotiate that we're going to fill this gap over the next 3 years. Unfortunately, as much as Interior Health would like to be able to do this all at once, they also have their own budget pressures and are not able to come to the table to fully fund this gap right away. They need a bit of a runway to get their budget lifts as well. So the increase in funding will start next year. Well, in
So just to
April of
follow up-
2026.
Just to follow up on my question is, it would be interesting to know how much of an increase from 2024 funding to 2025 funding that we've had, if any.
Yeah. Perspective of the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Your 2024 was $196,000.
Basically flat.
Yeah, so it's stay flat. It's nominal.
Okay.
1%, right? To 2025, as Dana pointed out, really the negotiation was about getting funding for 2026, 2027, 2028, 29, and then they're going to maintain. At that point, they will be maintaining their appropriate amount. The amounts will continue to step up as the operating costs of transit.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with the direction. It was just the
Yeah.
information that I was looking for.
Yeah. Danica, just a question. So by 2028, 2029, 1,947 annual service hours. That's total. So currently, are we doing about 1,000 service hours?
No, respectfully through the chair, we are doing 1,947 hours right now.
Oh,
But local government is subsidizing IHA on the delivery of health because IHA's funding basically froze with the onset of COVID. And when IHA's funding froze, it didn't really matter because we were receiving the Safe Restart funds and all this other COVID money was coming in to support public transit.
Right.
In 2024, that funding disappeared because COVID was over.
Right.
The pandemic was officially declared done. The emergency measures were gradually rolled back. Our funding disappeared, but we went to IHA and said, well, how about that funding? And of course, IHA facing all kinds of budgetary pressures, same as every other organization. It's like we are stuck at this level right now. BC Transit did fantastic work, particularly Bart at BC Transit over in the Okanagan, and the team there working with IHA to get them back to these numbers this quickly.
Right. So the material impact here for is going to go to the taxpayer, basically, or how are we going to see this additional 200,000 impact?
Sure. The way, so we've recently been through an apportionment process with the costs of local transit services here within the RDCK, within Kootenay Lake West, and portions of Nelson 555. And what will happen is in those IHA funded service areas, right, for those IHA, those big connector trips, these costs will actually help reduce taxation for participants of those health connection services, which if you distribute them around is everybody, more or less. And also what Danica didn't mention, and again, because IHA is very specific around the Salmo, the Caslo, and the Slocan Valley and the Cusp trips, right, as health connections buses, but we also use health connections funding for the 99. There's a portion of it that does go there because it provides connectivity to regional hospitals.
Right.
That's a critical step. So we'll be able to use some of this funding as well to maybe consider express, like an express hospital service.
Okay.
But that will be until after 2028, probably.
Yeah.
For right now, we're just catching up and reducing the impact on taxpayers.
On the taxpayer. Got it. Okay. Thanks, Danica.
Thanks. So I will put up some of these annual performance summaries. Unfortunately, even though the West Kootenay Transit System is one system, the way that it is operated, a lot of our sort of performance analysis that we do is broken up by the operating group. So I have 3 annual performance summaries. They are a bit dated now. This is from the 24-25 fiscal year, which these reports were prepared in the summer. So the first one is from the Trail in Castlegar area, or the region we call Kootenay Boundary. It's a lot of numbers. Some of the metrics that I monitor the most are the ones like cost recovery, operating cost per passenger trip, passenger trips per service hour. And then I'm always curious about comparing total passenger trips and total revenue, particularly from the previous year, sort of between the 2 most current years. And then these summaries also provide a good comparison sometimes to other similar systems. So they look at other similar systems in the area and then give you a comparison. So in this case, we can look at this one. I wouldn't consider a very good comparison. There aren't any other systems that are, I'd say too comparable to this Kootenay Boundary system. But you can look at sort of the tier average, which gives you the, an average of other systems that are as comparable as we have, and see how your local system sort of is performing compared to it. So for Kootenay Boundary, some of this looks, really great. 30, almost 32 passenger trips per service hour is a fantastic use of your resources. Passenger trips or ridership is going up from 354,000 to 630,000. That's a great increase. And then we also see an increase in total revenue. So certainly trends that I like to see. We also have the Kootenay Lake West, or area of sort of the operating group. This is the Slocan, Caslow, Selmo. This one is a more rural transit system. Passengers often traveling greater distances, which with each ride. So we do see things like cost recovery is lower and passenger trips per service hour is lower. But if you look at the tier average for a rural system, passenger trips per service hour is on par with other systems and is quite in line with what I would expect. Again, ridership is increasing, going from 70,000 to over 90,000. Last one is Nelson. Nelson, I like because this you can see we have quite a good comparison for the tier average. So Nelson as a system is sort of sized quite similarly to several other systems that we run in the province. When I'm looking at fleet size, service hours, and total cost, so I know they're quite similar. But then when you look at their performance and return on investment, Nelson is definitely delivering more. So operating cost recovery is 19%, sort of higher than the tier average of 13%. And you're also delivering more passenger trips per service hour than sort of would be typical for a system of this size, which is great to see. We'll move on to our bit of a UMO update. So UMO is the contactless or electronic payment system that was installed in the West Kootenay Transit System just over a year ago. One of our new updates is that effective September 1st of this year, the BC Bus Pass fare products are now enabled for tap validation like UMO fare cards instead of a visual validation. So for anyone unfamiliar, the BC Bus Pass is a provincially administered program that does provide low-income seniors and those on disability with a very affordable transit pass. And now this pass is functioning like a UMO card, so they can do tap validation. So the modernization of the BC Bus Pass aims to create a universal rider experience. It matches other BC Transit fixed route fare products like the like the rest of the routes, and it aligns with the way that BC Bus Pass holders travel on TransLink services in the Greater Vancouver area. So ridership data will now be captured through this validation process, so we could also improve our understanding of BC Bus Pass usage in the system. More data. We are preparing next to introduce the ability for riders to tap their credit or debit cards on board for fare payment. We're going to be testing this first in a few other systems, starting with Whistler next month. This will get some of the kinks out, make sure that payments are going through as intended, especially if riders have multiple cards in their wallet. We want to make sure that they're not being charged multiple times. And this will make choosing transit more convenient, especially for casual riders, making spontaneous trips. So it's just another option to get people to try out transit and use it spontaneously.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Go ahead, Tom.
I just wanted to add one comment for the people online and in the room too. During the UMO implementation has been incredibly successful. Like, as somebody who monitors the complaints regularly, who sees all the transit contact us complaints, I haven't heard a single one about UMO.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is shocking because it affects every single rider out there.
Wow.
Right? So, I mean, this was broadly adopted very, very quickly. And I think it was a piece of technology that the ridership was really, really waiting for. I think our operating partners in BC Transit really nailed it on this one.
Oh, well done.
Very successful.
Similar in Nelson?
Yeah, very much. The only complaints we get are, how do I get my card back? I think that's
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
other than that, when you nothing, which is
Amazing.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. And I'm sure the credit card's gonna make it even easier for those who.
Yeah, that's seamless. That'll be amazing.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Danny. Keep going.
Thanks. So I've shown these before and mentioned that with UMO, we're now able to get these monthly UMO reports. Again, UMO, this is only data from people that are riding with electronic fare. It doesn't capture any of the data from cash fares. But it does show good trends. So this is the most recent one from the August report. It shows you interesting data about fare products. Certainly, the number of student semester passes being purchased in August, and just who's riding and what kind of fare products they're using. Also have data on where fare products are being purchased. So Selkirk College, of course, comes up very high, as well as a regional district of Kootenay Boundary Office and some of the bigger centers in Nelson. So top routes for boarding tend to be quite consistent. So the number Route 43, the 2, 3, 98, and 31, and then the 99 is just behind it with just over 1,000 boardings in the month of August. Give you a couple infrastructure and capital project updates. So the new downtown Nelson Exchange is complete and went into service June 30th. The bike racks, garbage cans, and bus shelters were all installed in early August, and I believe there might be a little bit of landscaping that was done recently, or might be coming a little bit later in the fall, but it is operational and in service. We did introduce. Oh, Baron, did you want to say something?
Yeah, that's Jesse right there.
So we did introduce some minor routing and scheduling adjustments with this new location. The Ward and Baker Exchange has been decommissioned, and the public feedback has been mostly positive, with the exception of some riders that are concerned about the lack of bench seating on one side of the exchange. So we are hearing about that. It's my understanding that the primary reason that we had to introduce the sort of lean-on benches is to enable the city to get their snow plows in on this sort of stretch of sidewalk. So it was the best solution that we were able to do given the space limitations. So for the downtown exchange in Trail, the 60% detailed design has been complete and we are progressing towards 95% detailed design. This project is a little bit delayed. The 95% detailed design will come with a digital rendering of the street view to give a better idea of what this exchange will actually look like. Because these detailed designs are hard to imagine. And the next designs will incorporate some aspects in the designing of it to mitigate the loss of on-street parking, which has been a concern of the city of Trail. And construction could begin in the spring of 2026, targeting an in-service date for late 2026. I see a question.
Looks like that's Councillor Page. Councillor Page, I think we've given you the privilege of the floor before. I'll do it again. We'll keep that trend going. Go ahead.
Just a quick question, Danica, and just an observation from Nelson on those benchless sides, and maybe something to incorporate into Trail. But to me, in my eye, it always really looked like we had lost some space by not refitting standardized systems in place, and we lost so many inches against the provincial building because of the way they stand out. And you can see it in the photo that you showed. And it's really the difference between a bench that could be there because things are right up against the building in some manner, and the difference of not, because now we're 6 or 7 inches away from what's there. So it always just struck me that we had lost quite more space than would be desired over the long term. So maybe that's something that can be worked on in the future, but that's what stood out. And so now we have these lean-tos, and I've heard those concerns about it not having seating, but it's there now.
Thanks for your comments.
Director Papa.
Yeah, just to follow our regional district policies and procedures, I make a motion that we give freedom of the floor to Councillor Page.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have a second for that? We might as well do this right. Mayor McFadden, thank you. All in favor? Okay, that carries. So Councillor Page, I hope you have another question lined up so that we can, too bad. Anyways.
It's good for the minutes now. There.
Yeah, we've rolled back history a little bit there. Thanks, Director Popoff. Okay, Danica, go ahead.
Okay. So I'll move over to the Trail Transit facility. So BC Transit has finalized the purchase of 1175 Lower China Creek Road in Janelle for just over $4 million and took possession yesterday. So Anthony was there yesterday picking up keys. Very exciting purchase for us. So a couple pictures of the facility. We will be starting the required building and yard improvements. They're planned for early 2026. This involves upgrades to water, sewer, electrical, lighting, adding things like park storage and bus block heaters, and having the appropriate exterior lighting and fencing for a transit yard, as well as some basic yard resurfacing. Given these required improvements and projected schedule, BC Transit has requested a 6-month extension from the school district. The school district has not been that collaborative working with BC Transit staff. This decision will be going to the board at the October 27th meeting. There is a risk to BC Transit operations in Trail and area if we don't have a smooth transition from the old Juanita Road facility, which is leased to us by the school district. BC BC Transit is working as quickly as possible to get the designs and upgrades completed for this new facility. It has been a challenge because we did just take possession today. We're working as quickly as possible, but our role is to prepare for all eventualities. Ideally, BC Transit would like support from this committee to advocate for the school district to work more collaboratively with BC Transit. And make this, I guess, a bit more of a political issue for the school board to consider. The intent at this.
Sorry, go ahead, David. I was just going to say, so this, if I'm not mistaken, this is SD20, right? And
It is.
I don't actually know the boundaries for sure. Can you remind us, is SD20, SD8, is Castlegar, for example, SD20 or SD8? It is SD20, Castlegar. So I guess Terry, Mayor McFadden, this is more on you. But I will let our respective councils and tables know, Danica.
And impacts to service would mostly be potentially for around trail. I wouldn't foresee service impacts to Castlegar because you do have your vehicles are currently in a different location. But most of the impact would be as we transition from all of the fleet and the operations that is in the Old Juanita Road facility over into Janelle. But they are sort of bundled together into one operations.
So, Terry, looks like your hand's up.
Thank you through the chair. Yeah, City Trail will try to support you any way we can. The school district is a bit of a challenge at times. We've listened to them at the RDKB through our board meetings, or excuse me, our East End services. Not to be disrespectful, it's just what's happening. So yeah, whatever support you need, we'll try to help out.
Thanks. Yeah, I was talking to James Chandler earlier, and his suggestion was that if there was support from this committee, that the next step would be to discuss this at the next East End Services Committee from the Regional District of Kootenay Boundary, which I believe is October 21st, and then potentially just have a letter of support from the RDKB that could go to the board.
Okay.
If I may follow up with a supplemental, yes, that's exactly the route, and that's when the meeting is. So it's going to be a bit of a delay. Can't promise anything right now, but I'm sure it's going to happen.
Maria, go ahead, and then Terry, I'll come back to you in a second to ask a favor of you, actually. Maria?
Great, thanks. Yeah, I'm just wondering, Chair, if we write a letter from this committee supporting it, I just might have a bit more weight. It's got a bunch of different political tables that are a part of this committee. So even though it doesn't directly affect Nelson, it is a part of this committee's mandate to look at the whole system. So I just wonder if it's better off coming from you as chair with support, and if you need a motion for that. So it's actually supported by all of us, but I think that might be the way to go.
Yeah, that makes sense. So are you making that motion?
Yeah, I would make a motion that we write a letter of support for BC Transit's request of School District 20.
Terry will second that.
Oh, excellent. Okay, any comments or discussion? No? Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries. Yep. Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thanks, much appreciate. This has sort of been a rapidly developing conversation with the school district. So I'll move on to battery electric bus deployment. Just to recap, BC Transit is deploying battery electric buses in 8 systems across BC, including Nelson. The first 10 buses entered service in Victoria this summer. Operators all love driving the electric buses and are all secretly or not so secretly hoping to get assigned the electric bus to drive. The public are really noticing how much quieter they are for the rider when you're on the bus, as well as for street pedestrians, and people in passenger vehicles are really noticing how much quieter it is to be driving behind or next to these electric buses. So this project is on track. The scope is 2 heavy-duty battery electric Nova buses and 2 charging stations. So these electric buses are from the same manufacturer as the current fleet in Nelson. Right now, the team is working with Nelson staff to finalize designs for the yard and prepare for operations. Vehicles are expected to be delivered prior to the installation of charging stations. So if you're interested, you'll probably see them around before we're actually able to put them in service, but we're targeting spring of 2026 for in-service. And lastly, I'll mention our fleet replacements. So in March of this year, we did replace 2 new Handy-Dart buses for the Trail and Castlegar fleets. You'll notice for the image on the left, this is our new sort of look for BC Transit buses. In January of 2026, we are replacing 1 light-duty or ARBOC for Kootenay Lake West. This is, again, will look similar to the bus on the left, and these are the light-duty vehicles. And then in June, we will be replacing 2 larger light-duty vehicles. These are the international buses that you see on the picture on the right for Kootenay Lake West as well. So we've got some bus replacements coming up. Some of the things that these new vehicles have is a wider bike rack that accommodates wider tires for things like mountain biking and fat biking. There was also a recent assessment of BC Transit's medium duty fleet. So BC Transit owns and operates a fleet of more than 1,100 fully accessible buses across the province, and this includes 190 medium duty buses. So these are the buses, including the 15 buses that serve Trail and Castlegar on their conventional fixed route transit. So we're continuously assessing and evolving the needs of our local systems to ensure the fleet aligns with community requirements. This recent assessment of our medium-duty fleet found that there is no long-term market for medium-duty buses anymore. Medium-duty buses are not very common within transit systems. BC Transit is one of the, I guess, few transit organizations that actually utilizes them. I think the stats are 3% of buses are medium duty, and BC Transit takes up about 1/3 of those. So there is, I think, currently 1 producer in Canada of medium duty buses, and that is just not seen as a sort of viable long-term procurement strategy. Also, the medium duty buses haven't been as, haven't seen the cost savings that I think they were hoped. So between the sort of financials of it and the sort of unviable long-term market, BC Transit is going to transition to replacing these vehicles with either light duty or heavy duty vehicles. These replacements will be gradual as vehicles retire from service. So this will start in about 2027, and over a year or 2, these vehicles will be replaced for a different size. And in particular in trail, because of the terrain and narrow roads, there are some routes that will need light duty vehicles. And then there are some routes that could certainly benefit from having a heavy duty bus servicing it. Cost-wise, this is expected to be fairly cost neutral. The lease fees for heavy duty buses are slightly higher than light duty buses or medium duty buses, but there will be some expected savings when it comes to maintenance for them, because we have been experiencing higher maintenance costs for medium duty buses. than we do see for other sized vehicles. And that was the end of what I had. I had Anthony's update after mine, but he jumped ahead. So any other questions for me?
It doesn't look like it.
No,
So, Danica, thank you for that update. And we will move on to Briar to give us an update from Selkirk.
Yeah, so today I just have a short update for you, but it's very good news because we have started the fall semester, so I actually have information. Just a note to Danica, if you need some additional support from the college for the SD issue, if you just send me a quick email, we can also request from our board president if there is anything that they'd like to send. So that might be something that works because it is important to us for our trail students to have access to the transit routes, not only going in between campuses, but also a lot of our trail students access the hospital because of their health programs. So anything we can do to help there.
thank you.
Going into the update, I had a note there too, but I enjoyed Adam's presentation. I wrote it in there at the top too, because we're looking at doing a lot of accessibility work as well. So applications were up significantly at the college this year. So application increases typically don't necessarily translate into enrollment increases. It means it translates into more people wanting to come into the college. But what we are anticipating at this point in time is that we'll only see about a 3% increase in enrollment overall from an 8% increase in applications on the domestic side. On our international side, we did see a 47% decrease. That was with applications. We expect that will translate to about a 55% decrease in overall enrollment. The federal government has been declining double the fully enrolled students. So once we get the applications, we qualify them for program. We make sure that they're meeting the English requirements, the academic requirements for those programs. And then they go to the government with proper paperwork, with a designated program associated with it to be processed by IRCC. IRCC is still declining those applications. Selkirk College has seen their approval rate drop about 40% for students who are fully qualified with the proper documentation and paperwork that we send through to the government. Other colleges are also seeing that. It's not a Selkirk College issue, it's a Canada issue. So for example, we admitted over 70 qualified applicants to our healthcare assistant program. And of that, we were able to fill the program to 20, and there are 24 seats there. And that's just a really good example of how some of these high demand occupations in our region are being impacted by this issue. It's not that we need business graduates that are getting a lot of bad rap, but it's also the healthcare professionals that actually serve our communities as well. We are seeing in our FTEs, like I said, for the domestic side, we intend to see about a 2 or 3%. Some of the rotating strikes happening right now with the BCGEU are impacting our ability to access data, which is great news for the unions because that means that the strikes are impacting us, all of us, equally. So that's good on them for making something that works in their need. But with the FTE calculations, we have actually also implemented a strategic enrollment plan. So our strategic enrollment plan anticipates sort of the general growth that the college can anticipate over the next couple of years. And so with that, we are unsure in the current climate. We don't have a lot of good data right now. That's the biggest challenge that we have because the challenges that have been made through not only the federal government, but also provincial funding have made things quite challenging. You will have heard of the closure of our Nakusp campus and our Caswell campus. That is the physical location closures. We still will be maintaining service to those areas through education. They are still important parts of our service region. It's just the physical locations have been closed. So that things like that are happening, not just because of the federal government changes, but also because the provincial government has been hit very hard with funding. So it's actually quite exciting that you've gotten additional funding for the health program or the health transit programs. That's a good sign that the government's recognizing how important that is in the overall system. With our strategic enrollment plan, we do not believe that we will recover back up to 2019 levels, which was the peak of enrollment that the college was at. With the strategic enrollment plan, if we are able to successfully implement it, if all things go according to plan, we would be seeing about 2,500 students by 2030. And so 2,500 is a number that's still below our 2019 peak, which was about 2,900. So we do not believe that we will rebound for the next 10 to 15 years. And if that's really helpful, like one of the reasons I'm saying that is because hopefully it will be helpful for transit to know that information. Because there is quite a bit of misunderstanding that this is something that we'll be able to bounce back from. But unfortunately, the Canadian reputation for international education has been damaged so much at this point that even UBC is struggling to recruit students. And I just use them as the pinnacle of international pride of Canada for recruitment. So it's everyone is struggling at this point because of the challenges with the federal government and IRCC. That's the enrollment. We are looking at different strategies in order to bring education to the region, and we are going to be focused over the next 5 years on domestic enrollment as well as domestic penetration. So that's bringing students from our school districts into the college environment. We are actually very happy. The government completed a report over the last 5 years on penetration rates of school districts to their local regional college. And we see that our students here in the West Kootenays come into Selkirk College at one of the highest rates in the province. So we see between 40 to 50% of students exiting school districts that choose post-secondary coming into Selkirk College as their choice. And so that's really good when you compare to places like Coast or even Prince George. They're not seeing that at the same rate. So we really hope to expand on that. We want to get people excited about Selkirk College. And we hope that our enrollment will rebound faster than we anticipate at this time. But realistically, that's what we're looking at for enrollment at this point in time. And optimism doesn't help the bus services. So we are going to be realistic when we provide the numbers to you. Were there any questions at all on enrollment or anything generally that people want to discuss? You're getting your hand ready.
Well, yeah, thank you. And through the chair, with the closure of the Nakas and the Castle campuses, will that increase our transit busing from them, or is it going to be basically digitally provided?
I think some digital solutions will be made available. We're not completely sure yet. We're trying to make sure that we're listening to what access and education residents need. It may be that we are still providing local access, but from a point of origin that isn't a Selkirk College dedicated campus. So renting space from other providers in order to provide that access and doing things in different ways. So potentially grouping classes in a shorter period of time, bringing mobile labs out to be able to deliver some different types of programming. We are in talks with other post-secondary partners who do have mobile labs that don't use them year round, and potentially being able to access those to be able to provide different types of programming. So there is actually a very good opportunity. This is less related to transit, but also I'll go super fast. But there's lots of opportunity to do a lot of conversation and collaboration right now, because there's a possibility that we could end up with even more opportunity to work together with the communities that don't have a physical location. through this process. There's a lot of upset people about the campuses. And when I say that, I mean within the college community. It was a pride for us to be able to serve those communities in a physical location. And unfortunately, the physical situation is just, it's just upsetting at this point. So I apologize if we're outside of those communities now, but at this point in time, we're not sure that it will impact transit at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, Briar, thank you for that.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and of course. We are moving on to Tessa and to talk about the UPass at Selkirk.
Hello. Thank you for having me here. I'm just going to share my screen so I can share a very brief presentation. Is that working for everybody? Can everyone see my screen? Yep.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. Just took a second. All right. So thank you for having me here today. Great segue following up from Briar's presentation about Selkirk College. We're here to chat about a potential UPass at the college and how that would look. I have spoken previously to the Transit Committee about UPass, so this is a bit of a refresher on what UPass is. So UPass, this is a universal pass program that offers transit access to students. It is a heavily discounted program, and the reason it's able to be offered at that heavily discounted rate is that it is something that is applied to all eligible students in this case, so they all are required to pay a UPass fee. Most UPass programs provide semester passes, so it's a per semester basis. And it's for all students that pay student union fees and have at least one course on campus. So it generally captures most students that are required to pay the UPass fee. There can be some special unique circumstances if there are shorter program lengths, perhaps a prorated rate, and different accommodations if there are online students, perhaps an opt-in and that allows them to opt into the program, but not a mandatory program for online only students. So quickly, the benefits of UPass. Obviously, there are environmental benefits as we look to get more students taking transit to reduce traffic congestion, vehicle emissions, and contribute to climate-friendly transportation goals. There's guaranteed annual revenue. So that is one of the biggest benefits of UPass, is that it's guaranteed revenue for the transit system. Of course, students often are taking transit already and purchasing fares and fare products, but that can fluctuate as their transit usage fluctuates. But this is guaranteed revenue for the transit system that can be used for forecasting and budgeting. It also, of course, reduces parking demand on campus for faculty, administration, and students, and it creates lifelong transit users. So we do see that with a lot of different UPass programs, these students start to take transit access. They get familiar with it, and then once they're no longer a student, they continue to take transit as it's become a part of their routine. So considerations for Selkirk, we always discuss capacity. Currently, service levels are really aligned for the West Kootenay transit system. So with more students taking transit, there may be a requirement to assess service levels and see if there is increased demand. But currently, we don't expect that be something that would be required at the onset, but something that could be monitored and potentially need more service levels. The biggest consideration, generally speaking, for UPass would be financial. So we do recommend that there is a semester rate applied that equals the adult 30-day pass fare, which is currently at $60 a month. So we do recommend that with a UPass agreement, that $60 a month adult pass rate is therefore the rate that the student would pay in their tuition fees for the entire semester, and that those are aligned together. So in the future, if the adult pass rate was increased as perhaps an outcome of fare review, there would be an increase to the UPass fee at the same rate. So those would be aligned. It does, like I say, provide that secured annual revenue as opposed to student fare products that may fluctuate with usage. So it is something where we try to determine the potential revenue of a UPass program. As Briar was outlining, they provided some potential kind of enrollment figures that we could utilize for this. We did look at their previous enrollment to provide kind of a higher level, and obviously there's been some indications of how they may rebound, but we do expect that there's quite a lower enrollment figure coming out from this college. So we've kind of used this range to provide what we may see as UPass revenue. So from 180,000 to 252,000 annually a year. It's very difficult for us to determine currently how many students are purchasing transit access. We don't collect demographic information, so we don't know, how many users are potentially paying with cash or stored value or buying passes. The one kind of indicator we can look to, and I know Danica went through kind of UMO usage and vendor sales, is that we do have a vendor location at Selkirk College. And we can actually see the sales that they are, selling at the college. And we can make a general conclusion that those are most likely students purchasing those fare products, particularly with the semester pass. So I included some sales figures here from this year, kind of January to September, just to provide a bit of a comparison, understanding that revenue would no longer be collected as students shift to a UPass, just to provide kind of a comparison on where the revenue would be. Because we would look to lose that fare revenue as we move to a UPass, but then we would gain that guaranteed revenue. As mentioned, there's a lot of other benefits outside of the financial with the UPass program, but that is one of the big considerations as you look to fund your transit system and how this would impact that. So it does appear that there would be a positive revenue impact from UPass, but as I said, we don't know how many students are potentially purchasing cash or single ride fares. So this is not reflective, this 83,000 of all the student fares that are currently being sold in the transit system. So as far as steps to joining and what we would outline for the UPass program. So right now we would be seeking provisional approval on the UPass rate. So essentially that kind of provisional approval saying, yes, that $60 UPass rate, the adult 30-day pass rate does seem appropriate. Understanding that any sort of introduction of a UPass program requires referendum student body approval. So there's quite a few steps to get there, but kind of the first step is getting this conditional approval saying, yes, that pricing seems appropriate. We can move forward with engagement, further engagement. So there would be discussions with the Selkirk College Student Union Board of Directors. They would have to formally we'd have to secure board approval to move forward with that referendum. So if the board is supportive and they agree, then we can move forward. This is that kind of first initial step of getting this conditional pricing approval before we would move there. And then the spring and summer, there would be engagement with students on campus. And that would be to promote the benefits of UPass. So really outlining the benefits of UPass, working with the student union, working with the college to make sure the students are aware. And then it appears that the probably likely way that we would go ahead with the referendum would be in September of 2026. And that would be during the general elections. And that would be the referendum, and whether the students approve the UPass program or not would be up to them, but they would have that referendum put forward. And then if there is the positive referendum outcome, there would need to be formal approval granted by all the local government partners to actually introduce the UPass program. And that would include confirmation of the opt-out, opt-ins, and most likely a more thorough assessment of the revenue implications to get that formal final approval before introducing the program, which would eventually be September 2027. So a bit of a process to get there, as it does require some steps and approvals, and ultimately it's at the student's discretion as to whether they would like to approve a program. But it is something that offers that affordable transit access for students, and then also offers guaranteed revenue for the transit system. Any questions?
No other questions. I think I'm monopolizing the meeting here. I do have a question. When you say semester rate, what is your semester? Does it start in January and then in September? Or what are the days of the semester from start to finish?
Yeah, through the chair. So it can vary through colleges. Generally speaking, it's a 4-month semester. So it'd be September, October, November, December. And then there'd be another semester rate applied in January. I do know that some colleges have kind of some programs that are off kilter and might start in October and then go for 4 months. And that could be accommodated as well. And if there are kind of shorter trades programs, so perhaps a 12-week program, there could also be like a smaller fee applied to those programs to still offer the UPass to those students, but they wouldn't necessarily pay the full UPass rate. It'd be prorated kind of for the 12-week program. So there can be some adjustments, but generally speaking, the semesters are 4 months. So that rate is for a 4-month period. And generally it's going to be starting in September and January. I know there's some enrollment during the summer, so potentially could look at having a UPass rate as well over the summer. But understand it's not a very large enrollment over the summer. And some colleges and different universities, they have opt-ins for summer UPass instead of a mandatory fee. So those would all be determined. But essentially that provisional kind of $60 semester, 4-month semester rate would be what's approved.
Great, thank you.
It looks like we've got, sorry guys. Yeah, okay, Maria. Glasses.
I didn't have any question. That was probably from before.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion. Well, there's a recommendation from Tessa, I assume. Do we have someone who would like to move that motion?
I will move the motion.
Director Popoff, second. Mayor McFadden. So the motion is that conditional approval of UPass at Selkirk College equaling the adult 30-day pass rate be approved subject to further engagement with the college and a successful student referendum. And the approval of boards of the RDCK, RDKB, and Nelson City Council. Okay, all in favor? And that carries. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm not sure if we have any correspondence. I didn't. Right.
You bring them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, here's one.
Does anybody want to comment or pull anything out from those? I'll have them up on the screen in a second. Right, there was the seating.
Yes, the bench seating. Respectfully through the chair, in discussions with Nelson Transit, they are investigating some options for fold down benches and that sort of thing. The concern has been taken seriously, and they're doing what they can to address the
Excellent.
Benches are over the UK or something.
There we go.
But we'll see how, I want to have another look too and see what kind of space we have between the shelters. Even though it wouldn't be a shelter, if we can fit, I again have to go up there, but a bench in between them that's far enough back. I agree with Keith's comment too on the way the shelters were built out from that retaining wall, whatever we're gonna call it, to the building. They probably could have been a little bit further back to accommodate, but yeah, we are where we are. And I know that Jody's put forward to have a look into. I think he went through the designer of the Dave Fenton, posted to him to possibly look into folding benches.
Folding benches, that's great. And it shows that we're taking this seriously. And so I think likely it'll come back up again at Nelson City Council. And so we'll probably have a discussion that might get reported on.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on that or anything else before we adjourn?
One quick comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Respectfully through the chair, and I think this dovetails really nicely with our discussion regarding custom transit and Handy Dart. And always bearing in mind when we're designing the public transit system or modifying the public transit system, we should always be oriented to the highest barrier populations. Right? Like we should always be thinking about the people who have the biggest challenges with mobility in our community and design for them.
Right.
And at that point, it's easy to get everybody else on. And you know, this is not a criticism. No interchange is perfect. No design process is perfect. It's nice to see we're doing things to address. But again, I would remind the committee as we think about changes to the system, always think about what are our highest barrier groups and what are their barriers and what can we do to get around those barriers, tying in again to that piece, equity through mobility.
Yeah.
And I think if there was more discussion about it, like all the way down the line, and it wasn't just decided at the top, this is sort of what happens, there probably would have been more ideas that said, hey, you know, we knew it would be a problem before they were even there.
Yeah,
But we didn't have an opportunity to really have input on it.
yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, well, that's, Danica, I think you probably got that message. This ship has sailed, but future ships, maybe not. Okay. So that's it on correspondence. I need a motion to adjourn. Dr. Popoff, there we go. Thanks. Mayor McFadden, thank you. All in favor? And we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.